Taehyung broke down in tears during a live podcast and said something no one expected him to say out loud. "I won't get married if Jungkook leaves Korea." The words didn't echo, they didn't need to. They landed in the studio like a glass shattering against marble, sharp, final, irreversible. No one moved. Not the host sitting beside him with a frozen smile. Not the crew behind the cameras. Not the producers watching the live feed spike in real time. The air itself felt heavier, like it had decided to stop circulating. The podcast was live. There was no delay, no safety net. And Taehyung had just broken in front of the world. His voice trembled as the sentence finished leaving his mouth, as if even he hadn't known it would come out that way. His fingers reached up to pull the earpiece from his ear, then stopped halfway. For a split second, he hovered there, caught between escape and confession. His eyes were red, not glossy, not performative, red in the way someone's eyes look when they've been holding something back for too long. He wasn't looking into the camera. He was looking past it, somewhere far away, like he was seeing a future he didn't want to lose. A whisper crackled through the producer's headset. "Do we cut?" Another voice answered immediately, hushed but firm. "No, let it run. This is already everywhere." Taehyung wasn't supposed to say that. Not here. Not live. Not with millions watching and even more about to rewatch, rewind, analyze, and tear it apart. 2 days earlier, everything had already started to fall apart. The group chat had gone silent after Jungkook sent one message. "I've finalized the papers. After the wedding, I'm leaving Korea permanently." That was it. No explanation, no follow-up, no clarification. Taehyung remembered staring at the screen, waiting for the typing bubble to come back. It never did. He remembered the voice notes he sent after that. One, then another, then 5 more, each more confused than the last. He remembered RM calling Jungkook privately. No answer. He remembered Jin sending a photo from their last dinner together, the caption simple and cutting. "This is what you're throwing away." Still nothing. Taehyung said nothing in the chat. He didn't argue, he didn't plead, he didn't react. He just stared at the message until the screen dimmed. And now, under studio lights, with cameras inches from his face and an audience streaming live across continents, he was finally saying everything. His chest rose and fell unevenly. He swallowed hard, then spoke again, quieter now but somehow heavier. "You think this is just about a wedding," he said. "It's not." The host shifted beside him, visibly shaken. "You're planning to disappear," Taehyung continued. "To sell everything, to erase every anchor tying you to this place, and you think we won't feel it." His voice cracked, he didn't stop it. "You think I won't feel it?" The host leaned toward him, voice careful. "Taehyung, do you want to pause? We can stop." "No," Taehyung shook his head, his jaw tightened. "I'm not running from this." He took a breath that didn't steady him at all. "I've already lost too many things because I stayed quiet." The memory hit him without warning. 12 hours before the podcast, Taehyung had shown up at Jungkook's apartment without calling. The door wasn't answered right away. The hallway light flickered. Rain streaked down the window beside him. When Jungkook finally opened the door, he looked like a ghost of himself. His hair was tied back, dark circles carved deep under his eyes. His expression was flat, guarded. "You shouldn't be here," Jungkook said. Taehyung didn't answer. He looked past him. The apartment looked wrong. Shelves were empty. Frames were gone from the walls. Boxes were stacked neatly like someone preparing for erasure, not a move. The kitchen had no warmth, no mess. Even the piano had a dust cover pulled over it like it had already been buried. "Where's the photo of your mom?" Taehyung asked. "Packed. The vinyls from Osaka." "Gone." Taehyung's jaw clenched. "You're really doing it." "I told you." "You told me nothing." Jungkook turned away. I needed space. You needed courage, Taehyung shot back. But leaving is easier than admitting you're scared. Silence fell between them, thick and suffocating. I'm not having this conversation, Jungkook muttered. You already are. The memory dissolved back into the studio. Taehyung wiped his cheek with the back of his hand. He didn't bother hiding the tears. We all get scared, he said into the microphone, but I never thought you'd run. Someone backstage held out tissues. He didn't take them. Jungkook, if you're watching this. He hesitated. For the first time since the broadcast started, his eyes met the camera. I know you hate this, public emotions, messy feelings, but I can't pretend anymore. His voice dropped. I can't smile on stage while you erase yourself in silence. Then he said it again, slower, steadier. I won't get married if you leave Korea. He let the words hang, not for drama, not for pity, but because it was the truth. And somewhere across the city, Jungkook stood in front of a screen, fists clenched, watching the live stream. At his feet was a single cardboard box, sealed and labeled in black marker. Do not open. Inside it lay an unsent wedding invitation. Jungkook didn't look at the box. He couldn't take his eyes off Taehyung. Something in his chest shifted. And it hurt. 12 hours earlier, the rain had left streaks across Jungkook's window, each drop tracing paths like the echoes of decisions already made. Taehyung remembered standing in the hallway, hands shoved deep into his pockets, watching Jungkook move around an apartment that seemed hollowed out, as if someone had decided the past no longer mattered. He hadn't knocked. He hadn't announced himself. He had just waited, breathing quietly in the dim light. Jungkook opened the door, eyes weary, shoulders slumped, voice flat. You shouldn't be here, he said. Taehyung didn't respond immediately. He let his gaze wander over the stripped walls, the packed boxes, the absence of everything that once made the place feel alive. Where's the photo of your mom? He asked quietly. Packed. And the vinyl collection from Osaka. Gone. Taehyung's jaw clenched. You're really doing it, selling everything, erasing everything. I told you, Jungkook replied. You told me nothing, Taehyung said, his voice tight. The air between them thickened. Every word unsaid, every silence, every ignored message hung heavy. Jungkook turned away. I'm not having this conversation. You already are, Taehyung said, stepping closer, voice dropping to a near whisper, raw with emotion. You think this is freedom, but it's surrender. You're giving up on yourself before anyone else can take it from you. A shiver of memory ran through Taehyung. The cafe, the quiet corner they'd returned to after years of chaos, still smelled faintly of burnt cinnamon and nostalgia. Taehyung's voice echoed faintly in his mind. You can't let him disappear. Not like this. Taehyung's own voice had joined that chorus hours later. You distanced yourself. You ghosted. You started treating me like I was just a coworker. You made it easy for me to stay quiet. I needed space, Jungkook had said. No, you needed courage, but instead you chose the easy way out, silence. It was a confrontation that didn't end with anger. It didn't end neatly. It ended with truth, messy and jagged. Back in the studio, Taehyung's chest rose and fell unevenly. He swallowed hard and reached for the microphone again. I can't pretend anymore, he said, eyes flickering to the camera. I can't smile while you erase yourself in silence. He paused, letting the silence press down. I won't get married if you leave Korea. And somewhere, Jungkook, standing in his apartment across the city, felt the weight of every word. His fingers clenched into fists. A single box at his feet, labeled "Do Not Open," contained the wedding invitation he had never sent. He stared at the stream, at Taehyung's face, eyes red, lips trembling, the vulnerability on display more terrifying than any confrontation could have been. For the first time, something shifted. The barrier Jungkook had built around his decision, around his fear, around his isolation, began to tremble. He had thought leaving, Selling everything, disappearing quietly was the answer. But seeing Taehyung break in public, hearing the honesty in his voice, the refusal to stay silent, it cracked something open inside him. Hours passed in a blur. Neither moved immediately. When Jungkook finally spoke, it was low, hesitant, almost lost. "You're selling the apartment," he said. Taehyung's memory jumped back to the cafe. Taehyung's question had landed like a slap, sharp and precise. "So what next? The cars, the awards, the memories. What else are you throwing away to chase a future you won't even explain?" Jungkook's voice had been cold. "It's not about the past." "Then what is it?" "Because the Jungkook you know wouldn't run like this," Taehyung had said. "He wouldn't destroy every piece of his life to disappear quietly after a wedding no one's even met the bride for." "That's the point," Jungkook had said, voice flat, emotion contained but palpable. "It's about choosing something that's mine." Back in the studio, Taehyung's hands clenched in his lap. His voice quavered as he asked aloud, "Then why do you look so broken?" Jungkook, across the city, jaw tight, looked away. "You say this is choice," Taehyung continued, steady now, though trembling beneath the surface. "But you haven't smiled in weeks. You look like you're dying inside. You're cutting off everyone. You're silencing every part of yourself that ever wanted to fight. That's not choice. That's surrender." In the cafe, Taehyung watched silently, air thick with tension. Something old, something unspoken, flickered between the two men seated across from each other. "You're marrying someone no one's met," Taehyung had said. "You're selling everything that ties you here. You're erasing us." "I don't want this conversation," Jungkook whispered. "You already are having it." Taehyung's chest tightened, voice rising slightly, cutting across the quiet cafe. "You started pulling back when I needed you most. I was drowning, and all you did was smile on camera and pretend everything was fine. What else was I supposed to do?" Jungkook's voice cracked. "You don't know her like I do." "I know she's not me," Taehyung said softly, and the words silenced everything. The tension, the history, the grief, the love, everything that had been simmering for years, laid itself bare. Jungkook's hand curled into a fist so tightly the knuckles whitened. "I wasn't enough for you, was I?" Taehyung's whisper cut like a blade. "You don't understand," Jungkook breathed, broken now. "Then make me," Taehyung said. "I've been lying awake every night wondering what I did wrong. I cried on a live podcast, Jungkook. I humiliated myself for you, and you didn't answer my calls." It was a silence that hung longer than any word. Then, finally, Jungkook stood, reaching into his coat pocket. A small folded paper, hesitant, almost trembling, was placed on the table. "What is this?" Taehyung asked, voice taut. "My wedding invitation," Jungkook replied. "I haven't sent it, I kept it for you." "But I didn't know if I wanted you to come or stop me," Jungkook said. Taehyung's breath hitched. He repeated the words from the podcast in his mind, the weight behind them settling again. "I said I wouldn't get married if you left Korea." Jungkook's voice cracked. "I only wanted to leave because I couldn't bear to watch you with someone else. I thought disappearing would be easier than seeing you happy without me." And in that moment it was Taehyung's turn to break. Whispered, trembling, raw, a single confession carrying the weight of years. "Then why didn't you fight for me?" "I was waiting for you to fight for me," Jungkook admitted. Hours had passed without hugs, without reassurance, but something fragile, unspoken, flickered between them. A single breath, a single tear, a single acknowledgement of decades spent in silence and misunderstanding. Jungkook slowly tore the wedding invitation in half. "I don't want a wedding without you in my life," he said, quiet, almost afraid of the weight of the confession. And for the first time in months, Taehyung exhaled, not because it was over, but because something had just begun. The next morning, the HYBE building felt colder than usual. Polished floors, glass walls, and sterile efficiency, designed to suppress emotion, now stood as silent witnesses to a storm no one had anticipated. Taehyung's footsteps echoed across the empty hall as he approached the conference room. Jungkook was already there, sitting at the far end of the long table, fingers interlaced, jaw tight, eyes dark and unfocused. Three executives flanked by managers and legal advisors filled the room, their presence cold, deliberate, a subtle reminder that this was business first, emotion second. The air was tense enough to taste, sharp and metallic. "Let's get to the point," the senior executive said flatly, voice devoid of inflection. "You're calling off the wedding." Jungkook exhaled slowly, letting the truth sink into the room. He met Taehyung's eyes across the table. Taehyung's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, simply folding his hands in front of him, a silent ally and witness. "No press release?" the PR representative asked, tapping at a laptop. "There's no official statement, but speculation has been rampant for 6 months. The market's responding." Jungkook didn't flinch. "I didn't lie," he said. "I didn't correct the rumors, but I didn't lie." A junior legal assistant leaned forward, brow furrowed. "So your decision now is to remain in Korea, cancel your marriage plans, and stay with the group?" "Yes," Jungkook said after a long pause, "but not just with the group." The weight of that sentence fell on everyone in the room. It wasn't just confirmation of career choices. It was a declaration of personal loyalty, a commitment that would ripple through the industry, fans, and media worldwide. The executive's eyes narrowed. "You are aware of the implications of this choice?" "I am," Jungkook replied steadily. "You are aware of the cost?" "I am," he repeated. "You're telling us you're choosing to stay because of Park Taehyung," the legal rep pressed. "Yes." Taehyung's eyes flicked up for the first time in the meeting. His expression softened slightly, but he remained silent. Words were unnecessary. The truth had already been spoken, displayed, broadcast to millions. The room fell into strategic silence, broken only by the calculated tapping of fingers on a keyboard or a quiet clearing of a throat. "You are entering a personal relationship that will inevitably become public," the executive warned. "It will change your brand, your endorsements, your value." "I am not a product," Jungkook said, voice firm. "You are to those who invest in you," another manager countered. "I never asked for permission to live," Jungkook replied calmly, though every muscle in his body was tense. Taehyung finally spoke, voice cutting through the cold atmosphere. "We gave our youth, our blood, our health. You do not get to treat our lives as collateral. We don't belong to anyone but ourselves." The tension was a living thing, twisting and stretching across the table. Every assistant, every advisor, every executive knew this was unprecedented. HYBE's most valuable brand, the very embodiment of years of careful cultivation, was defying control. "Then what do we do?" the PR lead asked finally, voice tight. "Do we issue a statement, clarify, spin, control the narrative?" Jungkook shook his head. "No statement, no spin, we speak for ourselves." The room stiffened. "You will be crucified," the PR rep said, low and certain. "Social media, fans, sponsors, investors, they will tear this apart." Taehyung's expression didn't waver. "Then we bleed together." The executives exchanged looks, calculating, weighing options, scanning legal ramifications, stock impact, and fan reactions. Nothing in their manuals had prepared them for this. After a tense beat, the meeting adjourned without resolution. Everyone left, leaving Taehyung and Jungkook in a quiet silence that was almost sacred. Outside, the city carried on as if nothing had changed. But inside, something new had begun, something fragile and unbreakable. They exited the building under a gray sky, cold wind biting their cheeks. People rushed past, oblivious to the storm that had already begun behind the glass walls of HYBE. Jungkook glanced at Taehyung. "You didn't have to defend me like that," he said quietly. "I defended you when no one knew," Taehyung replied. "They're going to make this hard," Jungkook said, eyes darkening. "I know," Taehyung replied. They're going to say we ruined everything. Taehyung turned, eyes sharp, catching Jungkook's gaze. Snorts, then let's ruin it with our names on it. Jungkook laughed quietly, a sound painful and sweet, a release of tension he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You really mean that? I've never been more sure. The two of them stood shoulder to shoulder, not touching, not needing to, feeling the gravity of every decision, every consequence, every fan's anticipation already crackling in the air. Jungkook pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Taehyung asked. Posting it before they do, he said. Taehyung raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? Dead serious, Jungkook replied. He opened the camera, flipped to selfie mode, and captured the raw, honest moment. No filters, no lighting. No performance, just them. He typed slowly. This is us, I'm staying. Taehyung took the phone and added one final line beneath the photo. If loving him costs everything, then let it cost. The post went live. Within minutes it went viral. Fans erupted in disbelief, celebration, outrage, and speculation. News outlets picked it up instantly. Headlines flashed across screens worldwide. Taehyung and Jungkook, the truth behind the love everyone missed. Social media fractured, some defending, some condemning, some demanding explanation. Back inside HYBE, a meeting was convened at dawn. Security was tightened, phones were confiscated, and tension crackled in the air like electricity. Executives prepared for damage control, but Taehyung and Jungkook had already seized the narrative. The CEO, seated stone-faced at the head of the table, spoke first. Effective immediately, you are to be separated for the foreseeable future. No shared schedules, no joint appearances, no social media interaction. Your paths will not cross unless explicitly permitted. You're punishing us for telling the truth, Taehyung said sharply. We are protecting the business, the CEO replied. No, we're reclaiming our lives, Taehyung shot back. The legal and PR teams tried to interject, outlining contracts, consequences, and stock implications. But neither Taehyung nor Jungkook backed down. Every objection was met with a calm, unwavering defiance. They own everything, songs, albums, schedules, but they don't own us, Jungkook said quietly, eyes burning. Taehyung nodded. If we do this, we risk everything. You already are, Jungkook replied. A long silence fell. Then Taehyung whispered almost to himself, then say it. Say what? Jungkook asked. Say we burn it all. Jungkook's breath hitched, the words igniting something fierce in him. We burn it all, he said finally. Hours later, Taehyung posted a stripped-down demo of his unreleased track to his personal SoundCloud. No marketing, no label clearance. The song dropped like a lightning strike, raw piano, cutting lyrics, voice trembling but resolute. Fans flooded the platform within minutes. Some begged HYBE to stop the suppression. Some celebrated the rebellion. Hashtags surged. #let Taehyung speak, #protect Jungkook, no more silence. The world had noticed. And for the first time in years, neither of them looked away. The morning sun barely touched the streets of Seoul, yet online the storm had already erupted. Every feed, every notification, every push alert screamed with their names. Fans were divided into factions, defenders, skeptics, and the ones who simply didn't know what to feel. Social media timelines became battlegrounds, hashtags trending worldwide and comment sections flooded with emotion. Anger, disbelief, devotion, and heartbreak all tangled together. Inside the HYBE building, the atmosphere was palpably tense. The CEO, a figure whose calm had always been a stabilizing force, now ran through reports with barely concealed anxiety. Investors called frantically, questioning stock fluctuations, the public's reaction, and the brand risk of the viral post. But the executives were powerless to contain it. Taehyung and Jungkook had already rewritten the narrative on their own terms. Meanwhile, Taehyung sat alone in a quiet corner of his apartment, the sunlight cutting across the floor, his phone buzzing constantly. Notifications, news alerts, fan messages, they all blurred together. And yet he couldn't look away. Each message, each mention, each headline reminded him of what had just happened. The truth had been spoken, and now nothing could take it back. Jungkook arrived at Taehyung's building not long after, their eyes meeting in a hallway neither had expected to feel so private. They didn't speak immediately. Words seemed insufficient, too small to cover the weight of everything they had just unleashed on the world. They just stood there, side by side, the tension of hours pressing into the space between them. "I didn't expect it to go this viral," Taehyung finally said, voice quiet but steady. "I did," Jungkook replied, almost under his breath. "I knew the moment I hit post that there was no turning back." Outside, the city seemed oblivious. Cars honked, pedestrians moved in rhythm, unaware that the world of K-pop, the very image of perfection, was fracturing in real time. But online, the reaction was instantaneous. Fans who had waited for truth, fans who had endured months of carefully curated silence, finally saw the real emotions between them. Every comment, every repost, every fan art, every video compilation spread like wildfire. In the studio's control room, HYBE's internal team scrambled. They tried to spin, to minimize, to craft a narrative that would contain the fallout. Press statements were drafted and discarded. Every attempt to control the story fell flat. The reality was raw. Taehyung and Jungkook had reclaimed it, and nothing in the company's handbook could stop it. Security had been increased around both artists. Cameras were stationed near entrances and exits, ensuring no unsanctioned meetings could happen. But for Taehyung and Jungkook, the pressure of surveillance was nothing compared to the weight of silence they had endured for years. Now, in their shared defiance, it felt almost liberating. Taehyung walked to the window, looking down at the bustling city below. "They'll try to erase us," he said quietly. "They already are," Jungkook replied, voice tight. "But it doesn't matter anymore. They can't control the truth." Hours passed in a blur. Phone calls from fans, media, management, everything overlapped. But instead of panic, there was clarity. Every time Taehyung glanced at Jungkook, every time their hands brushed by accident or lingered, it reminded them that the world outside could rage all it wanted. They had chosen authenticity. By mid-afternoon, media outlets began breaking down the story. Headlines ranged from Taehyung and Jungkook, K-pop, boldest move yet, to "Is this the end of their careers?" Fan forums exploded. Videos dissecting their expressions during the podcast were uploaded and replayed millions of times. Analysts debated the implications for the group, for their solo careers, and for the entertainment industry at large. In the midst of chaos, Taehyung and Jungkook finally sat down together in the living room of his apartment. The lights were dim, the noise of the city muffled. They didn't need to speak. The silence between them carried years of unsaid words, of hidden emotions finally exposed. "I never thought I'd feel this free," Taehyung admitted, voice breaking slightly. "Neither did I," Jungkook said. "It's terrifying, but it's honest." They shared a look, one of understanding, one of shared history and vulnerability. No stage, no audience, no cameras, just the weight of truth and the relief of finally saying what they had carried silently for so long. Hours turned into night, and the internet showed no signs of slowing down. Every update, every post, every discussion kept them at the center of attention. HYBE executives continued internal meetings, their faces pale, trying to calculate the financial impact, the PR fallout, and the potential for sponsorship loss. But the two artists weren't fazed. They knew the world's reaction was secondary. Their priority was each other and the authenticity they had finally embraced. Late that night, Taehyung pulled out his notebook and began to write. Not for the label, not for the charts, not even for fans, just for him. Lyrics flowed, raw and unfiltered, reflections of the past, confrontations with fear, declarations of love and resolve. Jungkook sat beside him, occasionally humming a melody that fit the rhythm of Taehyung's words. It was the first time in years they had created something together, not for anyone else but for the sake of honesty. Outside, the world continued its chaos. Fans trended hashtags, media outlets debated, executives panicked. But inside the apartment, time slowed. The emotional weight, the tension, the fear, they existed, but so did the newfound clarity, the courage to defy expectations, and the unspoken promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the clock approached midnight, a final notification lit up Taehyung's phone. It was from Jungkook. "No matter what tomorrow brings, we hold on, together." Taehyung's fingers hovered over the screen, then he typed back simply, "Together." And for the first time in what felt like forever, the noise of the world didn't matter. They had reclaimed their narrative, their love, and their truth. By the following morning, the world had shifted. The viral post from Taehyung and Jungkook was no longer just a story in South Korea. It had ignited a firestorm across continents. Fans in New York, London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, and Sydney were watching, reacting, tweeting, and streaming every video clip and screenshot. Hashtags like Taehyung and Jungkook, Truth Over Image, and No More Silence climbed trending charts worldwide. News outlets scrambled to cover the story, some sympathetic, some sensational, and some flatly judgmental. In the offices of HYBE, chaos reigned. Senior executives convened an emergency meeting, screens flickering with live social media analytics. Sponsors were calling, some threatening withdrawal, others pausing campaigns indefinitely. Stockholders demanded explanations. The legal team scoured contracts, trying to determine if any clause could control the narrative they had already lost. Meanwhile, Taehyung sat quietly in his apartment, scrolling through global responses. Some were overwhelmingly supportive. Messages of love, encouragement, and solidarity poured in from fans who had longed for honesty. Others were merciless, criticizing, doubting, or questioning motives. But through it all, Taehyung remained grounded. Beside him, Jungkook quietly organized their schedule for the day, prioritizing interviews, fan interactions, and strategic appearances, not to control the narrative, but to remain visible on their own terms. A call from their international PR manager interrupted the silence. "The story is global. CNN, BBC, NHK, and every major outlet in Europe are picking it up. They want statements, but you two have already said everything. We're flooded." Taehyung leaned back in his chair. "We don't need to say anything else. The truth is out. We act, we don't explain." Jungkook nodded. "Exactly. We show it through music, through actions, not press releases." By midday, fan-driven campaigns were underway. Live streams analyzed their expressions during the podcast. Clips were subtitled in multiple languages. Fan art depicted intimate, emotional moments. Every post reinforced a narrative they had chosen to reclaim. HYBE's internal team tracked every movement, every trending hashtag, every surge in online engagement. What they had once considered controllable had become unstoppable. The executives, however, remained relentless. A meeting called by the CEO brought Taehyung and Jungkook into the sleek, metallic conference room once more. "You've already compromised multiple brand partnerships," the senior executive said. "You've caused shareholder concern. Your actions have consequences far beyond personal preference." Jungkook's gaze was unwavering. "Yes, and the consequences of living a lie are far worse. We are not choosing this for attention, but for truth." The legal advisor leaned forward, voice clipped. "Do you understand that your decision may affect contracts, endorsements, and your professional image irreversibly?" Taehyung's tone was firm, tempered with quiet conviction. "We understand, and we accept it because the alternative is silence, and we won't be silent anymore." Outside, international media continued to break the story as a global phenomenon. Headlines ranged from celebratory, K-pop stars declare love and authenticity in a bold move, to sensational, hype, golden boys risk everything for a personal choice. Fans responded with viral memes, emotional messages, and coordinated campaigns, some demanding sponsorships reconsider their stance, others defending the company. Social media became a landscape of passion, debate, and cultural reflection. Within the chaos, Taehyung and Jungkook focused on their music. They recorded in a private studio, stripped of cameras, free from industry pressure. Every note, every lyric became a declaration of truth, a manifesto of resilience. Taehyung's voice, raw and emotive, carried the weight of months of suppressed emotions, and Jungkook's harmonies intertwined with it, creating an authenticity the world hadn't yet witnessed. Meanwhile, in offices across Seoul, HYBE executives debated endlessly. Should they attempt damage control? Should they issue statements? Or should they let the situation run its course? Every option felt like walking a tightrope over a global audience that had already formed their judgments. Fans in Tokyo organized rallies outside studios, holding banners and chanting songs written by Taehyung and Jungkook. Social media influencers dissected every moment of the podcast, analyzing body language, vocal tone, and facial expressions. Even casual viewers who had never followed K-pop closely were drawn in by the raw humanity displayed on the live stream. By evening, Taehyung posted a short, unedited clip of him and Jungkook recording in the studio. It was just a minute long, no filters, no captions, no grand statements. The clip simply showed them creating, laughing quietly and sharing fleeting, genuine smiles. Within minutes, it was shared globally, trending in multiple countries. "Look at this," Jungkook said softly, watching the surge of notifications. "People are seeing us, not the image, not the PR, just us." Taehyung nodded. "This is what it should have been all along. Not headlines, not sponsorships, not stock prices. Just the truth, raw and messy and beautiful because it's real." Their phones buzzed constantly with messages from fans, fellow artists, and even some journalists reaching out for insights. But Taehyung and Jungkook had a silent understanding. They would engage on their terms, maintain authenticity, and not allow anyone else to dictate their story. Late that night, the global community continued to respond. Fan videos stitched together every moment of the podcast, the selfie post, and the studio clip. Tweets analyzed every sentence, every look, every nuance. Reddit threads exploded with detailed discussions, while TikTok recreated key moments for millions of viewers. In the apartment, the two sat side by side, exhausted yet unbroken. "They can't erase us," Taehyung whispered. "They already tried," Jungkook replied, voice soft. "But the truth doesn't disappear, it spreads." The clock struck midnight, and despite the chaos outside, they felt an unexpected calm. For the first time, they weren't performing, weren't hiding, weren't silenced. The world had reacted, yes, but they had reclaimed control. And in that control, there was liberation, even if the road ahead promised challenges, scrutiny, and battles with a system built to suppress them. Together they sat, planning music, strategy, and the next steps. Not for headlines, not for sponsors, not for PR, but for themselves, their fans, and the authenticity they had fought so hard to reclaim. The world might watch, the world might judge, but Taehyung and Jungkook had finally drawn their line, and it was unbreakable. The next morning, Seoul was awake, but the world was still spinning from the shockwave Taehyung and Jungkook had unleashed. International news outlets had run the story on their morning programs, with reporters analyzing every nuance of the viral podcast, the selfie post, and the unedited studio clip. Social media was a living organism, constantly shifting, growing, and evolving around their narrative. Tweets in English, Japanese, Spanish, and Arabic surged simultaneously. Millions of fans dissected every look, every word, every unguarded gesture. HYBE's headquarters had turned into a command center of urgency. Executives from every department, PR, legal, marketing, investor relations, were glued to live feeds, charts, and analytics dashboards. Conference calls with sponsors spanned the globe: Tokyo, New York, London, Los Angeles. Emails from concerned investors poured in at a relentless pace. For the first time in their careers, the management team was being forced to react rather than dictate. In the midst of this, Taehyung and Jungkook maintained a rare quiet. They moved through their apartment with a calm purpose, untouched by the noise outside. They weren't hiding, they were choosing how, when, and to what extent they would engage. Every glance, every touch, every shared silence was a reaffirmation of trust, of understanding, and of commitment to their own truth. Jungkook poured coffee while Taehyung scrolled through global reactions. Some headlines were dramatic. K-pop superstars risk everything for love. HYBE in chaos. Taehyung and Jungkook challenge the system. Fans demand authenticity, not image. Others were analytical, discussing market impact, stock fluctuations, and sponsorship risks. Yet through the noise, one thing was clear: authenticity had captured hearts worldwide. "Look at this," Taehyung said, showing Jungkook a compilation video made by fans. It stitched together moments from the podcast, the apartment studio, and their selfie post. Music overlaid the visuals, fan-submitted vocals harmonizing with lines from Taehyung's demo. "People aren't just watching us, they're feeling it. They're connecting," Jungkook said softly. "Not with our image, not with our brand, just with us." Their phones continued to buzz incessantly. Messages from fans, journalists, artists, even international celebrities. Yet, unlike before, they weren't overwhelmed. Instead, they curated, responded selectively, and leaned on each other for perspective. Each notification, whether praise or criticism, reinforced the reality that their decision had ignited a global conversation about authenticity, love, and agency in an industry obsessed with perfection. By afternoon, HYBE arranged another emergency meeting. This time, both Taehyung and Jungkook were present. The sleek conference room, usually cold and intimidating, felt charged with tension and history. The CEO sat at the head of the table, flanked by executives and legal counsel. Projected screens displayed fan reactions, trending topics, and potential sponsorship fallout. "You've clearly disrupted everything," the CEO said, voice calm but cutting. "Brand perception, market stability, sponsorships. Your actions are unprecedented." Taehyung met his gaze steadily. "We understand the impact," he said. "But what we can't understand is why silence or pretending is considered safer than honesty." Jungkook leaned forward, voice firm. "We didn't choose this to create chaos. We chose this to live truthfully, and the world is responding even if it's messy." The room was silent for a moment. Executives whispered among themselves, the tension palpable. One manager spoke up cautiously. "The sponsors, some are considering termination. Others are reviewing future contracts. Your actions are being interpreted internationally as a defiance of brand strategy." Taehyung's expression didn't waver. "If defiance means refusing to erase ourselves, then yes, that's exactly what we are." The legal advisor interjected. "Are you prepared for the financial consequences? Termination of contracts, canceled promotions, revenue loss." "Absolutely," Jungkook replied. "Because nothing we've earned is worth living a lie. Not for endorsements, not for appearances, not even for fame. Nothing." Outside the building, international fans organized live streams, rallies, and online campaigns. Messages of support poured in from every corner of the globe. Fans who had never followed K-pop closely were now invested, drawn by the humanity, courage, and authenticity that Taehyung and Jungkook had displayed. Social media algorithms amplified their reach exponentially, creating a tidal wave of attention that even the largest media outlets could not ignore. Back in the apartment, the two sat side by side, reviewing music demos. Taehyung's latest ballad, a stripped-down piano track, captured months of suppressed emotion. Jungkook hummed along, contributing harmonies instinctively. It wasn't just music, it was therapy, catharsis, and a declaration of truth. Every note resonated with the pain, love, and courage they had endured. The global response was relentless. Interviews were requested, fan reactions streamed live, analysts debated cultural impact. Yet in the quiet of their shared space, Taehyung and Jungkook found calm. Each moment together, whether reviewing lyrics or sharing a meal, reinforced the bond that had withstood years of public scrutiny, industry pressure, and personal sacrifice. By nightfall, they crafted a strategy. They would release music independently, engage with fans on their terms, and maintain transparency without compromise. This wasn't rebellion, it was reclamation. Every post, every song, every interaction would reaffirm the authenticity they had fought for. As midnight approached, they sat near the window, looking out over Seoul's skyline. Neon lights flickered against the dark sky, reflecting the chaos and vibrancy of a world suddenly captivated by two individuals refusing to conform. "They'll try to control the narrative," Taehyung said quietly. "They already are," Jungkook replied, his hand brushing against Taehyung's, "but we'll keep ours alive." A long silence followed, filled only with the rhythm of the city and their shared heartbeat. For the first time, they felt unburdened by expectation, unshackled from imposed narratives. They had chosen truth over convenience, love over image, authenticity over perfection. And somewhere in that stillness, the world watched, listened, and waited.